Yeah. Can all show ours except you, I guess.
Yeah. Still no sound.
No. All right, should we invite everyone to meet us in a Zoom chat room instead of some sort? Would that make sense? I have no idea how to fix the technical side of it.
Oh, wait, it might be
Oh,
fixed.
the sound is working now. Okay, great.
All right.
Okay.
Do you want to do a short intro again?
Yes, let's start again. So, hello, welcome. Sorry about that before, the sound issues we were having, but we are live now. I'm Jessica. I'm the executive director at C4, and this is our normal meeting time for the Certified Ethereum Professional Committee. We meet every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time, and we talk about all things CEP and Ethereum. And let's introduce the committee. So we've got Cheyenne Eskandari. He is our CEP Committee Leader.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everyone. Cheyenne, CTO of Ether Capital, and we're doing some exciting things there, but this is more on talking about certifications and how we can improve the overall the examination certification in this space.
Great. So we also have Josh Mcdougall. Josh, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how you got into C4, which is by starting it.
Hi, Josh Mcdougall. I'm also the Chief of Technical Difficulties, so sorry about that. Had a bit of audio issues, but I think we're good now. I helped found C4 back in 2014, I want to say, maybe a little bit before that. We just noticed that the space needed a little bit of maturing, and there needed to be some ways in which different industries could find good talent. And certifications were kind of the classic way of solving that problem. So we just entered that and made sure that we surrounded ourselves with the smartest possible people we could to make sure that our certifications kind of meet those needs that the industry so badly needed.
Great, thank you. And our latest CEP committee member is Kent. Kent, you want to say hello and explain why you decided to join the committee?
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I'm Kent. I lead the tokenomics workstream at the Shapeshift DAO, and I've been in crypto for a while. I actually took the CBP years ago and was just so enamored with the idea of having good, solid education, and then a way to kind of prove that you know this stuff around crypto, and then I was able to help out with developing the CEP before it went live. So I'm just a really big believer in the power of education and everybody learning around this, and glad to be part of the effort.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We're lucky to have all of you on the committee. So I think that what might make sense is to explain about our exam platform a little bit and how we got to where we are today. So we have a new platform. It's called CrowdQ internally. And the purpose of it is to make the exam creation more community driven and have it be something that other people can make suggestions to. And by other people, I mean other CEPs. But in order to talk a little bit about how we got here and where we're going, Josh, can you give a brief history on what we were doing with questions in the exam platform and where the idea of moving to something like CrowdQ, a collaborative platform, how did we get here?
Of course, yeah. So originally when we started the Certified Bitcoin Professional, it was generally just a big Excel document that listed, question, possible answer, A, B, C, and then, this one is the correct answer. And we would pass this Excel document around to the committee members, or we would actually just sit in a room together and go through those questions one by one, making edits, reviewing, discussing them. And it was good for the time, but we certainly recognized pretty early on that it didn't scale very well. And anytime we wanted to bring on new people to help, the only way we could really do it was either give them a template of that Excel document so they could write some and send it to us. Or if we needed to actually distribute that Excel document around, so that way, people could help us by reviewing those questions, but then they would have access to the entire question database, which is always a little bit scary as well. So we wanted to try and find a way to resolve that. One of the constant questions we always get as C4 is, how can we help? How can we contribute? Which is amazing. We've got so many people who are certified in these exams and really know their stuff, and they want to be able to help contribute to the space, which is obviously what we want to facilitate to begin with. So we started this platform as a way to allow everyone to really help and contribute, to provide their own questions without us exposing the entire question database, and giving the people the ability to actually go start that discussion about questions. And more importantly, it also takes it away from us to define, what these technologies are. We don't want to be the ones necessarily defining what Bitcoin is and what Ethereum is. But if we can have the community come in and define what these technologies are, it makes overall what we're doing a hell of a lot stronger.
I just want to add something here to just because there's a story that is even before I joined C4, is about I think Kent was around the CEP back then, which the goal was to do a CDP, or certified developer, Ethereum D, CEP, Ethereum developer, or some others. And all, as Josh was saying, that Excel sheet was almost complete. Right before the launch of the CEP, the DAO hack happened. And that's the story I've heard, that everyone's like, okay, we don't have the biggest issue in the Ethereum space. We don't have any questions around it, and no one knows exactly how to even approach that. And that's why the CEP happened almost 2 years after, just to figure out what the scope is, how to define these questions in a proper way, and not to get into that nitty-gritty developer details at the same time. If Kent or Josh, you want to say anything about that story and how that made you feel, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we had brought on at least one person to focus heavily on creating that exam, and they honestly did a great job of it. It was great content, and we were ready to release it. But the day before that DAO hack happened, and we asked the person who did most of the work on that whether or not it was included, and it's like, no, it's not there. Re-entrance fee is not a part of it, and we don't like releasing something for the sake of releasing something. So we clawed back the entire thing. I think we still have a stack of certified Ethereum developer blank certs under my desk somewhere, which we just never were able to issue. But it really helped us change focus as well, away from developers and into a more kind of generalized space, which is a little bit easier to keep up with.
It really speaks to how quickly this space moves too. Even without having more of a technical focus, there are so many things that are changing and evolving in Ethereum, whether it's scaling or the upcoming replacement of the current proof of work consensus mechanism with proof of stake. But I think more than any other industry, and even more than other niches in crypto, this space moves very fast. Especially, it's an interesting comparison with Bitcoin, which is kind of takes a very deliberate and slow approach with respect to innovation. Whereas with ETH, it's just kind of full speed ahead. So it presents an interesting challenge in terms of making sure that the latest developments are reflected in the CEP, but also in a way that isn't overwhelming everybody with the technical details and the nitty gritty.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. So let's talk about what CrowdQ is and how it works a little bit. Cheyenne is going to screen share so we can show what it looks like. So we've been using internally CrowdQ for the creation of the CEP, and also we moved the CBP exam over as well. And so internally, we've been using it to add questions on the collaborative platform, make comments, proposals, accept the questions, move them forward, reject them, that sort of thing. So the exam was built on this platform, which is really cool, and we're excited about it. But the next step, which is super important, is to be able to have the community be something that is open source in terms of anyone having access to the question platform. And to have access, you need to become a CEP, but that's really the only thing, because we need people who understand the technology to be able to add questions. So Cheyenne, why don't you explain what you're doing right now, and yeah, we'll hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So one thing is that this is a platform. It might not look as good as our website, but it's functional and works well. So one quick thing. So this is, I'm basically going from the end, like going backward. So like when you start doing a CEP, you start the flow. Here in this platform is called survey flow, which we can see like as you can see these in the CP study topics, which is this PDF on our website. It goes through like the categories we have on the exam and the subcategories, what they entail, and some other details. It's almost complete. There might be a few things here and there that are different in this section. So as you can see, like there are like as an example, like Ethereum basics have like subcategories which are different, like Ethereum community, addresses, transactions, and each of these have many questions in there. Like I'm just gonna, I guess here there are different questions, but you'll get one question out of this many in every exam. So this is kind of randomized, makes it much fair exam. And there are different categories here, which I'm not going to click them out to like leak all the questions. You just saw some of the community, which is fine. But so basically, like this is the flow that every CEP exam would follow, get all these questions. And just before moving to a question, is there anyone want to add anything about this flow? Or because I know it was different before, and a lot of work has gone to making it more fair.
Yeah, I think the platform itself has become extremely useful now that we understand more of how it works and have built an exam inside of it. CEP was the our tester for how it works to build an exam inside of a platform that's collaborative and changes in real time, versus having it on a Google spreadsheet, which is also collaborative and in real time, but it's not able to be organized in the same way. So this was, a good learning experience for us, and now we're excited to move forward to be able to have more people participate in it. And the organization of it, as Cheyenne pointed out, goes in, accordance with what is on the study guide. And then you can see here as well that we can pick how many questions come from the pool of questions for each topic and domain.
Yeah, so like the other thing, basically, like what we would open in 2022 to the community, to the CEP, is the ability to suggest questions and answers. So the rest of the, like basically us, the committee of CEP committee could go through those suggestions and tweak and actually add to the question base. So here's like one example that Jessica added, which you can see basically come up with the questions. I think I can click approve. It looks better here. So the question is like, is Ethereum Turing complete? And you can just say if it's a true or false or single answer, and then you can basically come up with every detail. You can add it as like skippable. Something that here I want to mention and talk about a bit. Probably Jessica, you're the best person to talk about this, as this option, translation mode. I know there was some exciting news about, I'll let you talk about this.
Yeah, it is exciting. This is something that's going to be happening very soon in terms of the CBP. So if you, do you have access to the CBP, Cheyenne? If so, you could show how this works. But either way, the translation mode, it has been enabled for the CBP, and every single question that is in the CBP in English is in the CBP in Spanish. It's been translated by the community and by community members who are CBPs. And we're going to be releasing this potentially this month. The entire exam's translated, the study guide's translated, our prep book is done. We're just having some final edits on it. The course, we're not there yet, but the CBP prep book and study guide and exam are all in Spanish. And the translators worked directly in CrowdQ to make the changes, which is really, really cool because they're CBPs, we know they know the content, so they could gain access to the questions. Then within the platform, someone would translate, and then there is a second person who goes in to check and see if the translation needs any changes. Kind of, it's always good to have two sets of eyes on something. But now that this has been opened up to being translated in Spanish and is complete, and we know what the system looks like and how the process should work, we're going to begin in 2022 expanding it into other languages. And then we will do the same thing with the CEP. So this really comes from the community. We would never have had this translated if it wasn't for the people who are doing this and volunteering their time. So that has been obviously an amazing gift to C4 and to anybody who is interested in becoming a CBP that does not speak English but speaks Spanish. And so we'll be doing the same thing with the CEP and moving forward, seeing what other languages work. We'll be asking the community what languages people would like to see it in, who's available to help translate, that kind of thing. But this functionality is going to make a huge difference on being able to spread the CBP and CEP exam to more people who would otherwise be unable to take it, because obviously speaking English does not have anything to do with whether or not you understand the technology. So we're excited to have it available for more people.
Yeah, exactly. The goal is if you get your CEP, that means you speak Ethereum. It doesn't mean any other language.
That's a lovely way to put it.
All right. So one thing we can do is we can go through adding another question and show how that looks like.
Somebody put a question on the YouTube chat. I'm going to put it in our Telegram group so that you can add it. Cheyenne.
Yeah, I think I can. That's Matthew, right? On Udemy, they have the questions on CBP. Will that happen with CEP? I think, Jessica, you're the best person to answer this. But is that?
Yeah, well, there's another question below, someone asking about Ethereum's Casper proof of stake. So why don't you, if you can add that to CrowdQ, I will answer the question about, what was the question? Let's see here. So the question is, on Udemy, they have the questions on CBP. Will that happen with the CEP? So the answer to that is yes, but it's in progress. So obviously the CBP has been around for a lot longer than the CEP, but it was updated this year. And well, I guess no, it's updated continuously, but it had an overhaul in 2020. And then 2021, our goal was to create the CBP prep book and the course. Obviously, it takes a lot of time and effort to do that. So for the CEP has been the exam itself, and it's a really good exam. We're really proud of it. And the next step will be to increase the study materials and resources that directly link to the exam. So we are working on the CEP book currently. It's in progress. We've got the first 2 chapters pretty much done. They just need some work, and then drafts of, I think, the next 2. So we're working on it. It's funny, even if you understand the technology, being able to put it into your own words to explain it is definitely a challenge. So it's something that we want to make sure is excellent before we release it. So that is in progress and will be coming out in 2022 for sure. And then the next step will be creating a course that is similar to the prep book, but will be, visual and have some interactive components to it on the exam, on the platform for, the study platform. So it is in the works, but please just be patient with us as we get through it and make sure that it's something that is useful. We don't want to put something out that isn't going to work well to help people pass it. We don't want to sell a course that doesn't provide all of the information needed to be able to become a CEP. So basically, we're starting with the questions that we have and then building the book around that to make sure that all of the exam questions, that information is covered in our study materials. And then also other kind of background information and the knowledge you need to know to really understand how everything comes together, not just, individual pieces.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. So Mr. Ladidan, I think, sent this suggestion for a question, which is interesting because I think we had some of our discussions before. The suggested question is like, why is the Ethereum Casper proof of stake less centralizing and thus increasing chain security in contrast to proof of work? And the suggested answer is lack of economies of scale. So we can discuss this. Like, some of these questions might be a bit tricky because we want to have a scientific underlying on every question. And here, it's kind of a controversial question. I don't know if Josh or Kent, do you want to add anything here about proof of stake being less or more centralized than proof of work? And why?
Yeah, it is a little bit controversial. And I think we, as a sort of committee, are careful to avoid delving into things that are not objective and maybe more subjective and opinion driven, like something like saying proof of stake is better than proof of work. But this is interesting. What are the attributes that arguably make proof of stake more, or at least very sufficiently decentralized for a global network? Really, one of the things is as opposed to proof of work, where you need to spend a lot of capital on expensive miners and have these giant warehouses, as we've seen with Bitcoin. It's arguably more democratized, where simply holding tokens in the network, in this case ETH, allows you to participate in the consensus. To run a beacon chain node, you need 32 ETH, which of course, for your average user, that's actually way too much. However, there's a lot of ways that you can go about staking even with less than that. You're seeing this with like Rocket Pool and Lido and some of these. And then in terms of security, this is also, you can get down that rabbit hole pretty far, but in terms of like finality with the blockchain, there's some advantages. Again, it's a deep topic, but yeah, this is actually a really interesting sort of thing. Is like, okay, us as a committee, how do we answer something like this and clue people in, but without taking too much of a subjective standpoint?
Yeah, this is also, I think it was a great example of how our committee ends up working. And I think like things we would discuss is, do we need to specifically mention Casper in this case? There are, some competing methodologies. Obviously, Casper is kind of at the forefront there, though. So then there's also, we're talking about it being less centralizing. So do we want to specifically talk about which attributes of proof of stake can be seen as less centralizing? But then we also have the discussion here on increases to the chain security. Security, theoretically can kind of go either direction, and there might even be, counter arguments to proof of stake's security models. So with this type of question might end up actually being broken up into several questions. And usually what we'll end up doing is actually going and sometimes doing some extra research between our committee meetings to say, okay, let's look at the consensus mechanisms in place here and kind of see if we can find other research about the centralization of proof of stake, or the lack of centralization of proof of stake, and to help kind of make sure that if we put an answer down, then we have some, again, community results to kind of back up our claims here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to point out, in terms of the exam platform, if we were to ask the question, how does this work for the community and the committee members, you can see what Cheyenne has added here as a question. He's changing it around a little bit based on what we got on YouTube. But if he goes down to the part below where it says choice group, he can add the answers there and submit it. And once we get to that point, I'll show you how somebody else who has access to it can then make comments on it so that it's an evolving question. And in that, if in the community or in the committee meeting, like Josh said, we might bring this up amongst ourselves, but in addition, people who are in the community who have access to this, other CEPs, can also be looking at it and making the same type of comments on there and saying something like, okay, well, I think we need to, remove the part about Casper or whatever it is, so that it really is something that is being created by more than just us. And also that's why we do these kind of town halls where we talk about it, because we do want the community to have a say in what we're doing. I mean, we're all part of the community as well. So yeah, so if we head back to what Cheyenne's doing, if you want to explain where you're at.
Sure. So as Josh said, so for the actual question here, we had Stefan and Andrew, which were also committee members. They're not here right now. Mainly it's we discuss things. I'm adding words and command Zing all the time here, figuring out how to change the question. But as Josh was saying, this is a question that needs to be split into a bunch of different parts and less opinionative and more to the facts. So here, one thing we could do is use those kind of not questions, say why Ethereum proof of stake is not less centralized or similar to that. So there's one obvious wrong reason. For those that have done the CEP, there are so many Easter eggs here and there, things that are obviously funny. I got a message from a friend last time. I'm just going to leak another part of the question, but he couldn't stop laughing for half a day. There was a question about cold wallets, and one of the answers, I'm not saying wrong or right, is that it should be kept in 0 Kelvin degrees, so minus 200 Celsius or something.
I think we can give a hint at if that's wrong, right or wrong.
Yeah, it is a wrong answer.
That's not right.
But it was a funny one.
Yeah. So we have fun with it too. I like that you pointed that out, Cheyenne. Doing this together, going through the questions, we laughed a lot and learned a lot too as we were doing this. If you're into geeking out about this, it's really fun.
Do you guys have any suggestions? We can just say what is the reasoning behind this argument, or we can just say why proof of stake is not less centralized.
Yeah, I think that's fine. If you want to just put something in, we can then show how in the comments we can add it and how it evolves.
Sure. Yeah.
I think we should ask everyone watching if they've got some good wrong answers that we can add in here.
Yeah, that
exactly.
would be awesome. If you put them in the chat, we can then add them here.
So again, that question again, what is the reasoning to say Ethereum's proof of stake is less centralizing in contrast to proof of work?
One thing is Vitalik has more stake in the game.
Ethereum is a scam.
So if anyone, why is that? Any wrong answers?
Yeah, any wrong answers in the YouTube chat? See another question we'll get to in a minute from Kickin.
Yeah, there's also a delay, so we have to consider that.
Oh, good point.
So single answer, what is the reasoning to say Ethereum is less centralized? Okay.
While we're waiting to see if anyone else adds, why don't you just quickly go back up to where you were, if you don't mind, Cheyenne, to show where the type of answer. Yeah, so there's a variety of different ways we can do this. If there's multiple correct answers, this is all multiple choice and true and false and some check boxes, but we could, in theory, add a text answer. That would definitely complicate things in terms of having people needing to then check the answer. So that's why it's, automated, but you can change the, type of question and how it's displayed as well. There's a lot of different options. Okay, why don't we just go with these questions or these answers, and then I'll show how that works for me to.
So it seems like our platform didn't work. What was the answer? What is the?
Did you submit it?
I think I did, but let's do this again. New voice group, add choice. So one thing I'm known for in this group is that my ability to do a lot of copy pasting. So
just 6 copy paste skills.
But so on my end, I'm in CrowdQ as well. I can't see what Cheyenne's doing right now in CrowdQ since he's building it. But as soon as he has submitted it, when I go to collaboration questions, it will then show what he added on my end. So I just refreshed, it shows. So I can open this up, and then I'm going to make a comment on my end at the bottom.
Yeah, and also you can update the question, remove the answer from the question.
Well, that's okay right now. So I'm posting a comment right now that just says, great question, what other answers should we add? And so then Cheyenne can respond on here. Anybody else who has access to it can also respond to it. And there's also that option you can see with the blue button that says proposals. I could go through and make proposed changes. So I'm going to add something else. Did anybody else put another option in the YouTube chat?
No.
No. Okay. So I'm just going to write other answer. I'm doing too many things at once to think of something. So if I submit that, when Cheyenne goes back to the question, he'll be able to see that there is a new proposal that's been made. You can see it here. So then the committee, people who have access to this, can see what the changes have been made to it and either accept or reject it. Now, I'm not sure, to be honest, Josh, maybe you know this off the top of my head, I can't remember who has access to see the changes that have been. I know anybody can propose changes. But not everyone can accept them.
Yeah, that's all kind of part of the fine-grained permissions of the system. So we can have different, like someone who's their first time, contributor might have a little less privileges than someone who's been around the system for a while that, has gathered some trust from the committee and we're comfortable giving them a bit more access. So
yeah. So that is basically how it works. If Cheyenne was to then, he showed before where kind of everything fits in the exam that aligns with the study guide. But so this is the collaboration part. There's also the approved questions, and then there's the survey. The survey portion is the actual exam. So the survey flow, if we open it up, shows all of the different sections here, like he was showing before. And the questions go into, we can tag the questions and to show how they relate to whichever topic, and inside that, which domain, so that it is organized in a way that you can check and see if your question has been asked. So somebody in here in the YouTube chat said that they'd like to see questions about the DAO, like why it was controversial and why it may have influence in the future on more forks, for example. So if you're a CEP and you have access to this, you can add a question in there, and then people who have the ability to look at the other exam questions can go through and say, like, okay, what do we have about Ethereum forks? Or what is there about the DAO currently? So there is a question or two about the DAO. Does anyone remember what that was?
I think it pertains to just the nature of forks, hard forks versus soft forks. And then just as an additional point, if you guys are thinking, well, there's some ambiguity about like what will be covered, if you're sitting down getting ready for the CEP, don't fret about like not knowing exactly, the scope of what's being covered. You'll be presented with an outline, and we're actually working on an in-depth study guide, basically a concise book, along with eventually a video course that will really give you the exact type of preparation you need. One challenge on our end is if there's new developments that need to be added back into that material after we need to be mindful of that. But don't ever worry that you're going to be caught off guard by a question. We're trying to be very methodical about making sure that everything that's covered in the test will be very clear and unambiguous as you start to study for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, Kent, because Kent is helping with the prep book. So he and I and some other people are writing this, and we are definitely referencing the study guide, referencing the questions in the exam, and putting this all together to make it easier for people who want to become CEPs but don't have all the information or don't really know where to look to make sure that the resources are credible, so that there is this location that is pretty easy to get a hold of what you need to know. And I studied for the exam. I used the study guide to go through and do that, but I had an advantage as well from being a part of the some of the meetings and to have some of this knowledge already. But we do want this to be something that anyone can access and pass as long as they spend the time to really learn the information. And part of that is because we want people to then feel empowered to help with the exam itself.
Yeah, I want to add something. So one thing I usually suggest is for the scope, if you go through this 3 pages of like the study guide, and there are keywords that you've never heard of, like just Google them or look in the Mastering Ethereum on that section. And with that, it should be enough to cover most of the questions in the exam. But there are also some questions. Let's say the conversation was about the DAO. So one of the questions is about the planned forex. So we know that the roadmap of Ethereum, like if you know the roadmap, you should be able to answer that. So it would fall under mostly like the Ethereum forex, or just kind of like the history on like Ethereum communities and others. We try to like make sure the questions are not that controversial, meaning that like the question about the DAO is not which Ethereum is the original Ethereum Classic or Ethereum. Like those kind of questions don't have necessarily any answer in the sense of like the certification. But at the same time, this easily goes like is outdated, because right now one of the ideas I had was to go through this article by Tim Bako about like the impact of Ethereum application layer and the merge, and start to extract questions from this. But we got a question from like the YouTube chat, so we spent time on that. But there are like some interesting things we can bring out of these articles, such as like what is the main difference of the block fields in the proof of work and proof of stake, or those kind of questions, which if you know overall the whole idea, you know that like some of the things don't exist in proof of stake. And most of these, if you follow our Twitter, the C4 Twitter, we tweet about these when the articles come out, when the discussions are happening. And after these questions get to the collaboration pool, we usually make sure like there's like at least 10, 20 questions here. We spend some time like this, go through all those questions, discuss them. When they're approved, we go through the CEP study guide and update this document. So usually that's our flow. A lot of them are loose consensus, meaning that like if this group decides that this question is fine, we put it out there till we get a comment that is not fine. Like, so we're open to any suggestion, and that's why we want to open this whole platform to the community to get more feedback, get more questions, and have a better certification in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Good things don't usually evolve in a vacuum. So we do want to get other people's opinions to help us with this. Somebody asked in the chat what the time frame was for the CEP study guide. There is a study guide with just the CEP topics online available on our website. In terms of the prep book, I would say Q1 of 2022 as we work through that. Kent, does that sound right to you? I know you're waiting on me.
Yeah. Given that we've already started on the content and working on edits, that feels pretty realistic, and just given the scope of everything.
Yeah, thanks. It's like I said earlier, it's interesting when you understand something, to be able to teach it to somebody else. I think is kind of the true test of how much you get it, and to be able to make sure that you're doing it in a way that isn't uninteresting, because I think that some of this material is dense, and so it's important to make it and engaging, and that's something that is important to us. So we're working on that. I mean, Cheyenne pointed out that there's humor in the exam as well. We all like to laugh a lot and to find amusement in even serious topics. So that's definitely something that is important to have in the book as well, so it's not dry. And that's something, thankfully, Kent is really, really good at and has great analogies. So I got to toot your horn a little bit, Kent, because what you're adding to the book is really, I think it's excellent. And, eventually when it's out and people have it, then we also, I'm sure, will hear feedback from people in the community, which we do about the CBP prep book. And based on that, we can make adjustments too. Nobody's perfect. Even a committee can use outside help to make things better. So that's something we'll also be looking forward to.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. It's an interesting challenge presenting this information, which, can get somewhat technical and dry in a way that's more relatable. There are certain details that, maybe are on the drier side, but it's kind of like all about like understanding how it fits into the bigger picture. And once you get that, it really clicks, because the bigger picture is super freaking cool. This is a global, unstoppable trust machine, essentially a global computer that has all these wonderful properties. And then, okay, well, why does it work the way it does? And what are the components that go into it? So in the guide we're building, we kind of start out with that bigger picture and explain some of the fundamental attributes of both blockchains and specifically Ethereum, as well as kind of noting how it differs from Bitcoin, because I imagine a lot of CEPs are kind of like kicking in the chat, where maybe they have a CBP already, so they have kind of those fundamentals, and then kind of dig in at that point. If you don't know about Bitcoin too much already, that's fine. It's not a prerequisite, but we're just trying to gradually bring you down that rabbit hole in a way that's fun and not too intimidating.
Yeah, and something I think that we've talked about as well, and Cheyenne, maybe you can address this, or Josh, is the difference in difficulty between the CBP exam and the CEP exam. Do you want to cover that?
I mean, it turns out the CEP is a little harder. Not really intentionally. I think Ethereum is just, a slightly more complex beast to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, absolutely incredible technology, beautiful project, which I think kind of roped in a lot of us into this area, and the CBP does a great job of making sure that the people who earn that designation understand how that technology works. But it's just at its core a little bit simpler. The Ethereum network is equally impressive, but there's what it's trying to do is just a bit more of a complex beast. So I think that's kind of reflected in the exam. We try and make sure that even with that difference, it's still not a completely technical exam. It's not. You don't have to be a programmer in order to do the CEP. It's just by the properties of the network, it's a little bit more of a complex beast. So the exam kind of reflects that. But
Yeah, and I just want to add something there that like so consider the certification as the kind of entry point into the industry. So like for CBP, one of the early questions is like, what is money? Like you have to ask those questions because I have this thing here that I usually use, which is like a €0 bill. It's a €0. It's actual money, but it's zero. So it is like, is this money? And this is like more a Bitcoin question and like, what is money? Like who generates money? And then for Ethereum, it comes as like, imagine having a vending machine that no one controls, or like you can put the supply in there and get the fees on that. Like that, there is so much more complexity you can add. And I like how Josh was saying, like a more complex beast. So like they're both like huge, but you have to like figure it out. And the other thing that I want to just add is, so for CEP, basically we learned a lot from CBP and the past and like what to do right and what not to do. And one of the things I really like is, not those topics, is that for like the committee, so this whole C4 started with like really Bitcoin OGs or like crypto OGs, you could say. And the initial round of questions on CEP were done like by basically all of us here, but also like Stefan and Andrew, which one comes from like small contracts security, which also is my background mostly, or and Andrew, which is more on trading side, which we had like a good view of all these kind of things. And I'm really happy that we have Kent now here, because Kent is also coming from like Shapeshift was this big company in the space doing a lot of like swaps and trade, like more on not on the trading side, but the company on this, and is switching to the DAO, which is mostly relevant to like what is happening to the space right now. And we would have a lot more DAO related questions, or how organizations get into get DAOs and all kind of things, which Kent is like right in there right now. And we're going to see a lot more discussions coming up.
Yeah,
We're so happy that you're with us, Kent, that we're going to add you to that list of committee members, which I just realized you're not on.
I need to give Jessica a bio and a headshot, so that's on me, but it's a good reminder. But yeah, it's great to be part of this. And like Cheyenne mentioned, you know, we're with the Shapeshift DAO, this would not be possible without Ethereum. We run on Ethereum. And the idea of having decentralization can kind of sound a bit like a buzzword, but it's actually something like that really stresses how it's actually a thing. We're truly distributed as we move into an actual DAO as an organization. People all over the planet contribute. It's permissionless. Everything that happens is transparent. Work stream for Shapeshift, you know, we're deliberating about things like how to diversify and manage our treasury. All of this happens on chain. We have voting on chain. So kind of zooming out and looking at the big picture of what's possible, this is just one of the, I think, societal transformations that will happen as a result of Ethereum and other smart contract blockchains as well.
I'm glad that you brought up your work at Shapeshift and how it is, you know, moving. Well, it is a DAO now, and you know, well, I won't go into the details, but this is a self-serving question for C4. But I think it'd be interesting to see about people who are contributing to the DAO, the Shapeshift DAO, becoming certified, and how that might help others that are there to sort of test the knowledge and to be able to have that proof. Like, I do understand Ethereum, here's my CEP, and I know anyone can be involved, but I think it'd be interesting to get more people that are contributing to the Shapeshift DAO to be certified.
Yeah, overall, DAO knowledge is not that much in the questions. Like, it would be great to get more feedback from people that are participating in the DAOs on something like Shapeshift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there'd be a huge appetite for both providing feedback to the C4, but also really taking that exam, getting that cert to show that you really know your stuff. One of the challenges we have as a DAO is just getting more talent on board. And you know, if we can get out there and be like, hey, you know, here's a CEP. Maybe there's a way we can collab on giving out, you know, certs or you know, discounts on certs, something like that. So, the other cool thing is Shapeshift is just one DAO of many now. So there's a lot of really cool things happening. You see DAOs built around NFTs. Of course, we have Gitcoin, one of my favorite DAOs, doing incredible things with public goods funding. So we've just gotten started. It's so exciting.
it's pretty cool to see how what we do is starting to become more mainstream in different ways. I was on Instagram yesterday looking at this. It's a profile I follow that's about history, and they're now going to be minting NFTs related to what they're doing and the different photographs that they have from history. And I was like, whoa, wait, this is even more interesting to me now than it was 2 minutes ago. So now I joined their Discord and I'm trying to figure out how this is working. But it's pretty cool to see something that I thought was an interest that was very separate from, you know, open blockchains and all this technology. And suddenly they've merged together in a way that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that's similar to Budweiser having like beer.eth and having NFT collections. Like you see that everywhere that is happening, which is great.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, we're almost out of time for now. So we'll do this again in January to have an open office hours, and we'll see what people are asking to talk about and sort of where we can contribute more information to the community about what's going on at C4 and with the CEP and anything else. So if you do have suggestions for what you would like one of our office hours, town hall, whatever you want to call it, to be about, please let us know on Twitter or, you know, send us an email at info@cryptoconsortium.org, and we would love to get your feedback. Any closing remarks from anyone?
Just one thing that keep an eye for Shapeshift DAO voucher coming up and some others, so we can get more people excited. And one other thing is, like, if people want to start contributing to the questions, is there any like easy way?
Yeah, that's a great point. So you can send an email to info@cryptoconsortium.org telling us that you are a CEP, share your cert info, and then we'll connect you with the CrowdQ platform so you can start to add questions in. So we have that capability now. We'd love to start it. We're going to be rolling it out more aggressively in the new year, but there's no reason why we can't start now. It's available, and we'd love to hear feedback. I mean, sooner we hear from the community, the better about this, because it really will improve the exam tremendously.
And one day we have C4 DAO, who knows? We'll see. It's a lot of work, but
yes, yes, but I mean, it does align with our values in many ways, so I can see why you would suggest that.
we're basically like an off-chain DAO right now, so
that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with our background, C4 is a Canadian nonprofit, and we just work heavily off of volunteers, as well as all the funds that come in for our certifications go directly to reinvesting in things like our study material, our conferences that we run. Boy, are we looking forward to having an in-person conference again at some point in the future. And even the CrowdQ platform is something that, you know, the funds that come in for certifications directly goes to. So it's, you know, we're pretty serious about using all of our funds to continue the betterment of the space.
I think that it's an important point that we're a nonprofit, and our goals are to certify and educate. And within that, obviously, we need to be able to pay for what we need to pay for, but at the same time, we give away exams, we give discounts for exams. Our goal is to educate and certify. It's not to stockpile money. So we are very open to giving discounts to groups of people, to trying to expand this knowledge to more people out there. We accept volunteers for things like writing blogs, helping us with different content. Really, we are in existence because of people who volunteer their time and believe in what we do and want to make the world a better place. So on that very cheesy note, we are going to sign off, and we will do this again in January. So happy holidays to everyone. Happy New Year. And we'll see you all again live in the new year.
keep safe.
Everyone.
Bye.